Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. So in today's video I'm going to be giving you my final opinion on update 1.34. An update that kind of came around and at first looked to be perhaps a very disappointing update, but I think what's common knowledge by now is that this turned out to be one of the better updates we've ever really had within GT7, mainly for the fact that a lot of stuff that was locked behind RNG is now a thing of the past, and we can now finally purchase engine swaps and ultimate tuning parts, essentially unlocking an entire portion of the game that was kind of hidden behind this RNG based type roulette wheel. So first up, let's talk about the cars that came with this update, and a lot of people were fairly disappointed. We have the GAC Maverick up first, the kind of main poster boy of this update, coming in at 300,000 credits. This is a bit of an animal. 1200 brake horsepower, a SEMA show car winner from 2018. I was genuinely surprised just how enjoyable this car is. It has a lot of potential, it's insanely quick, and it's certainly something a bit unique in the Gran Turismo sphere. It does sit in with the other SEMA winners, but this one certainly stands out to me. In my personal opinion, this is one of my favourite ones of the kind of custom cars that we already have within GT7, and is a very, very worthy addition. Catching me by surprise, I really cannot complain about this one. The second of the three cars that came with the update was the R32 GTR Nismo from 1990, coming in at 400,000 credits from the used car dealership. In all honesty, as much as I love the GTR, it genuinely at first felt like a bit of a copy-paste job. However, after some driving time and getting behind the wheel of this car both in standard and modified form, I must say this is a massive improvement. And if you didn't know, you can essentially give it the JGTC look with the full wide body and big wing on the back. It really does make this one stand out from the standard GTR that we already have, and in all honesty, it's just an overall better performing car. It feels better to drive, it has some great modifications, and I genuinely cannot complain about it anymore. At first I did think this was a bit of a cheap cop out, but the more I've driven it, the more mods I've seen for it, and just the more time I've spent entirely with the car, the more I actually enjoy this thing. So in honesty, I'm again rather quite surprised. It did exceed my expectations, although after seeing it originally, my expectations were rather low. Not because I don't like the car, I absolutely love the GTR badge, but it felt a bit copy-paste. And then finally we have my favourite car from the entire update, the Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint GT Veloce from 1967, coming in at 180,000 credits. This is the cheapest car of the bunch. In fact, overall the cars in this update were under $1 million, which is, well, rather inexpensive for Gran Turismo 7 updates anyway. So this car is definitely something that I absolutely treasure, and it will be a car that I will probably use for the longest time, and is overall my favourite of the bunch just for the car it is. It's a fantastic little machine. It's a car that I've seen at many classic touring car meetings over the years that I've been watching motorsport kind of in the flesh, and in all honesty, it lives up to those expectations. Whilst okay, maybe it's not the model I would have gone for, certainly being able to race modify it and just give it some very aggressive looks, this is not only one of the best looking cars in the game in my opinion, you can really get it nailed down with that classic touring car feeling. If you haven't already and you want to basically build this thing into a full-blown race car, I fully recommend putting the wide body on, getting those mods on, and in all honesty, it's a fantastic hand-and little pocket rocket. It's a great car, a worthy addition, and I am really, really grateful for Polyphony for giving us this car in the insane detail that's within GT7. Yeah, fantastic addition. Let's move on next to the events. So the cars were surprising, but the events, well, they were just, I guess, okay. Right, there were nothing too special. There's no grinding event or anything like that. So if you go into it with those expectations, you're going to enjoy it even less. I kind of just go into it with an open mind, take them for what they are, and in all honesty, they were okay. So we had a continuation of the Super Formula, I guess, series that came in the last update. We had two new events for that. The first one at Road Atlanta, which was surprisingly enjoyable. I just liked the track in general. I did think the Super Formula cars were just a little bit kind of too low slung and bumpy for it, but overall it was an okay event. It was enjoyable for what it was. I probably won't go back. Next up, probably the most, I guess, showcasey event of the bunch, which was supposed to be dynamic weather. I personally didn't, so let me know if you did get dynamic weather for this race. Was the one at Autopolis. So Super Formula again, the final one of the two. In all honesty, this was an okay event. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I wanted to, mainly because I didn't get the dynamic weather. I'd have absolutely loved rainfall, having to kind of, you know, pit in at the right time and such. Will I go back to it again? Maybe, to just kind of test out the weather with it, just to see if it kind of happens, see if it kind of comes around and such. Like I said, I didn't get it the first time. I got plenty of it on the radar, but none of it ever really came down. So yeah, overall an okay event. Could have been better if the weather was working, from my personal experience. Then we have a continuation of the GTR Cup. Only makes sense because we have a new GTR with this update. Obviously I used the Nismo. It's a fairly straightforward event, don't expect too much. This takes place on Blue Moon Infield, I believe on the reverse version of this track. It was okay. Again, just typical sprint racing, 5 laps around, GTR only cars, which again make for a great showcase, and that's kind of what it felt like, a showcase race. There was really nothing else to it. I cannot realistically say that Blue Moon Infield is one of my favourite circuits in the game. I would have much rather had it somewhere else, maybe one of the Japanese tracks and such for the GTR Cup, but overall it was fairly okay, just a standard sprint affair, just to kind of show off the different GTR cars in the game. I wish we would have seen some of the more older ones. It just seems like kind of anything from the 90s onwards, instead of the, you know, the kind of classics and such racing around with you as well. Then moving on to the Clubman Cup that took place at High Speed Ring Reverse with the dynamic weather. This was actually much better than I expected, and probably one of my more memorable races. So this is where I made use of the new Maverick. In all honesty, it was fantastic. Just trying to put 1200 brake horsepower down on a slippy surface was absolutely enjoyable. I really enjoyed this one. As much as I kind of like the Super Formula ones, this one kind of just stands out in my memory. And looking back on the footage and stuff, it was just a very enjoyable race. Yeah, okay, it's kind of basic. It's a typical 5-lap sprint. You won't need to worry about tyre wear and anything like that. But just the weather and the, you know, the powerful American cars going around the track, spinning up the rear tyres and just trying to keep the cars in a straight line was absolutely a blast. It was probably a little bit too easy to complete. That's the only downside to it. But apart from that, it was a very enjoyable event. And then finally we have a continuation of the classics. I believe this is the Sunday Cup or the Clubman. I cannot remember which category it falls under exactly. But this is where I made use of the Alfa Romeo, and with it being my favourite car of the update and one of my favourite cars in the game entirely, I genuinely had a blast here. Yes, it's a bit straightforward. It's at Monza. It's a 2-lap event again. You don't need to worry about tyre wear or anything like that. But just for being able to just throw this car around Monza, it again just kind of stood out from memory as a very enjoyable race. Not one you'll probably go back to, just for the fact that, well, it doesn't pay well. It's a very straightforward race and such, and it's a pretty slow race in terms of other Gran Turismo 7 races, but it was enjoyable for what it was. So overall, these events were much better than what my expectations thought. But again, they were still just only kind of okay. You know, I had low expectations for these events. It was the cars that made it for me. Then we have a little bit of a surprising addition, the 2023 updated liveries. So we have the TGR Cup livery on the Group 4 Toyota 86, and we have the 2023 Hypercar livery on the Toyota Hypercar. So sadly we didn't get the Evo version, so it's still going on the 2021 model. But again, surprising little addition. Nobody really expected it. You did get the car for free if you did the Toyota Championship, which was you know, rather quite nice, to be honest. I already own one, but getting one, you know, a new one, a fresh one for free, just for the sake of what, 20 minutes of my life, I really cannot complain. However, I do think the Group 4 Toyota looks absolutely stunning in that new updated livery, much better than it did previously. Nice little addition, absolutely out of nowhere, so I cannot complain. And then on to the main feature, engine swaps and ultimate tuning. This is absolutely brilliant for Gran Turismo 7. It's one of the best things they've added in. You know, for me, it's up there with the likes of PSVR 2. They're selling cars. You know, it was much better implemented than I thought it would be. The fact that it wasn't just the engine swaps and it was the ultimate parts as well really essentially just unlocks a part of the game that was kind of hidden away behind RNG. You know, that's no more. You can go ahead and buy them. Yes, it will require you to grind and all that stuff, but it really can change up a car. You know, if you get a good engine swap for a certain car, there's a high chance you're going to absolutely fall in love with that car over again. And that's what I've been finding over the last couple of days. Was it worth the wait? In my opinion, yes. Should it have been in there sooner? Yes. But, you know, it was just, you know, it's a great time. It's a great feature. There's a lot of people out there just really enjoying this. And to be honest, I'm glad I sat there bugging Polyphony for over 8 months just to get this thing done. And they did. They did deliver. And in all honesty, the game is overall feels a lot more complete now. I mean, if we look where the game started day one to where it's kind of at now, you know, with the selling cars, the PSVR 2, now being able to buy engine swaps and ultimate tuning parts and not have them hidden behind RNG, the game overall feels a much more complete product than it did day one. That doesn't mean it's an entirely perfect game, but updates like this and adding these features in that the community have been asking for the longest time, it really does kind of give the game a new kind of breath of fresh life. And in all honesty, I am all for it. It genuinely feels like a much more complete product. But now for me, in terms of the next few updates, Polyphony really need to focus on content and events. You know, we've got everything we could really ask for in terms of kind of features of this game. There probably is still other features out there if I sat and thought about it, but in all honesty, in terms of main features, we've got plenty of them in the game. I really want them to now focus on events and content, and maybe even kind of look into doing a bit more with sport mode, because again, that is something that if you've been playing it for the last year, it's starting to feel stale. And if we had a bad week on that, or a week that's just not too great for those events, you know, having a bit more of an expansion to that will definitely kind of improve the overall, I guess, quality of the game. So definitely that's where they need to turn the focus. The features wise, it's pretty much spot on now. It does feel really, really good and a much better product overall. So in my honest opinion, update 1.34 has been a fantastic update. Whilst it's not maybe the biggest in terms of actual content within it, what we did get was pretty much fantastic. The weakest part being probably the events. That's, again, like I said, really where they need to kind of start turning their focus in terms of making the game more content heavy as well. So, you know, overall 1.34 is fantastic. The, you know, buyable engine swaps and ultimate parts and stuff is a fantastic addition. The cars were surprisingly good. So overall, I just feel like the game feels a lot more fresh currently. That'll probably wear off over time, but this is definitely something we needed going forward in Gran Turismo 7's kind of life cycle, and it feels much better for it. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss an upload from me. Thank you to my sponsors, Poggers and the Controller people, as well as my channel members for your continued support. It's been absolutely fantastic. Discord, Twitter, all that good stuff in the description down below. And I'll see you later on, guys. Peace.